It was just past dawn when the first tremor rippled through Jerusalem's western district. The Israeli intelligence building, an imposing structure of steel and surveillance, had long stood as a symbol of impenetrability. But on this morning, it became the epicenter of a calculated and unprecedented strike. Arab fighter jets, flying low and fast, pierced the city's airspace with precision that stunned even seasoned defense analysts. The roar of engines was followed by a series of concussive blasts that shattered windows across the capital and sent plumes of smoke curling into the sky. Inside the building, chaos unfolded in seconds. Sirens blared, emergency protocols activated, and personnel scrambled to secure classified data. This wasn't just an attack on infrastructure, it was a direct challenge to Israel's intelligence supremacy. The building housed key operations of Unit 8200, Israel's elite cyber and signals intelligence division, known for its integration of AI in warfare and surveillance. The strike wasn't random. It was surgical, aimed at disrupting the nerve center of Israeli defense strategy. The jets, believed to be part of a coalition from multiple Arab states, deployed stealth tactics and electronic jamming to evade Israel's Iron Dome and radar systems. For years, the Iron Dome had intercepted thousands of threats. But this time, the attackers exploited blind spots, using terrain and timing to their advantage. The result? A breach that sent shockwaves through the region. International media scrambled to verify the details, while Israeli officials remained tight-lipped. The question wasn't just how the strike happened, but what it signaled. A new phase of warfare had begun, one where intelligence buildings were no longer safe havens and airspace dominance was up for grabs. The aftermath was immediate and disorienting. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, navigating debris and twisted metal as they searched for survivors. The Israeli intelligence building, once a fortress of encrypted secrets and strategic command, now stood partially gutted. Its northern wing collapsed, its communications tower severed. The air was thick with dust and urgency. Helicopters hovered overhead, scanning for further threats, while armored vehicles secured the perimeter. The city's pulse had shifted. Jerusalem was no longer just a spiritual epicenter. It had become a battlefield. Inside Israel's defense command, the mood was grim. Analysts pored over satellite feeds and intercepted transmissions, trying to piece together the origin and coordination of the strike. The jets had vanished as quickly as they arrived, slipping back across borders before Israel's Air Force could mount a counteroffensive. The precision of the attack suggested months of planning, possibly aided by insider knowledge or cyber infiltration. Questions swirled about how such a breach could occur under the watch of one of the world's most sophisticated intelligence networks. Public reaction was swift and polarized. Some Israelis demanded immediate retaliation, citing the attack as an act of war. Others urged caution, fearing escalation into a broader regional conflict. Arab media outlets framed the strike as a bold assertion of sovereignty, a message that intelligence dominance would no longer go unchallenged. Social media lit up with footage, theories, and calls for accountability. The narrative was no longer confined to military circles. It had spilled into the public domain, where perception could be as powerful as firepower. As night fell, the building's ruins glowed under floodlights, a stark reminder of vulnerability. The symbolism was unmistakable. Even the most secure institutions could be touched. And in that realization, a new strategic calculus began to take shape. In Tel Aviv, the ripple effects of the Jerusalem strike were already being felt. Military command centers shifted to high alert, and diplomatic channels buzzed with urgency. The Israeli Prime Minister convened an emergency cabinet meeting, flanked by defense and intelligence chiefs, each grappling with the implications of the breach. The attack wasn't just a tactical blow, it was a psychological one. For decades, Israel had maintained a reputation for airtight security and technological superiority. That image now bore a scar, visible to allies and adversaries alike. Arab states, meanwhile, issued carefully worded statements. Some denied involvement outright, while others praised the assertion of resistance. Intelligence analysts speculated that the jets may have launched from a covert base in Jordan or Syria, using advanced radar-evading technology possibly acquired through foreign partnerships. The geopolitical chessboard was shifting. Nations previously considered peripheral were now emerging as players in a new intelligence war, one fought not just with drones and satellites, but with audacity and timing. Back in Jerusalem, the civilian response was complex. Some residents gathered near the ruins, lighting candles and singing prayers. Others protested, demanding answers and accountability. The Israeli media, typically restrained in matters of national security, aired footage of the damaged building and interviewed former intelligence officers who warned of deeper vulnerabilities. The narrative was no longer about a single strike. It was about what it revealed, that even the most fortified systems could be breached, and that deterrence was no longer guaranteed. In Washington, London, and Berlin, intelligence agencies scrambled to reassess their own vulnerabilities. If Israel could be hit this way, who was truly safe? The Jerusalem strike had become a case study overnight, a blueprint for future conflict, and a warning that the rules of engagement were being rewritten in real time. The intelligence community was now in overdrive. Within hours, Israel's cyber units launched retaliatory probes into suspected Arab military networks, searching for digital fingerprints. The goal wasn't just revenge, it was restoration of deterrence. But the strike had exposed a deeper truth. The balance of power was shifting. Arab states, long seen as fragmented in their military coordination, had demonstrated a level of unity and sophistication that caught global analysts off guard. This wasn't a rogue operation. It was a message, and it had been delivered with chilling clarity. In Riyadh and Cairo, military analysts dissected the strike with clinical precision. The choice of target, the timing, the escape route, it all pointed to a new doctrine, one that prioritized symbolic disruption over territorial gain. By hitting the Israeli intelligence building, the attackers had struck at the heart of perception. They hadn't just damaged a facility, they had punctured the myth of invincibility. And in doing so, they had redefined what modern warfare could look like in the Middle East. Israel's response was measured but resolute. Surveillance drones were deployed across border zones, and diplomatic envoys were dispatched to key allies. The message was clear: Israel would not let this strike go unanswered. Yet behind closed doors, there was introspection. How had the attackers known the building's vulnerabilities? Was there a mole? Had cyber defenses been compromised? These questions weren't just tactical, they were existential. Because if the intelligence community couldn't protect its own headquarters, what did that mean for national security? The ruins of the building became a pilgrimage site for journalists, analysts, and curious citizens. Each crack in the concrete told a story. And as the dust settled, one truth remained. The era of untouchable intelligence was over. The battlefield had evolved, and so had the stakes. In the days that followed, the Israeli intelligence building became more than a damaged facility. It became a symbol of a turning point. Reconstruction began swiftly, but the scars ran deeper than concrete. Intelligence officers worked from temporary command centers, while cybersecurity teams launched a full audit of internal systems. Every protocol was re-examined, every access point scrutinized. The strike had forced a reckoning not just with external threats, but with internal complacency. Israel's intelligence apparatus, long revered for its foresight, now faced the uncomfortable truth that it had been outmaneuvered. Arab military strategists, meanwhile, studied the global reaction. The strike had drawn condemnation from some quarters, but admiration from others. It had demonstrated that even the most fortified nations could be reached. And it had shifted the psychological terrain of the region. No longer was Israel seen as untouchable. The balance of deterrence had tilted, subtly but unmistakably. Arab states began investing more heavily in joint operations, cyber warfare, and stealth technology. The Jerusalem strike had become a blueprint, not just for confrontation, but for strategic evolution. In Israel, public discourse evolved. The initial shock gave way to sober analysis. Think tanks published reports, retired generals gave interviews, and university seminars dissected the event. The consensus was clear. The strike marked the beginning of a new era, one where intelligence buildings were no longer sanctuaries, and where warfare would be defined by speed, precision, and unpredictability. The rebuilding of the intelligence building would be physical, yes, but also philosophical. A new doctrine was emerging, forged in the rubble of a surprise attack. And as the region watched, one truth lingered. The skies over Jerusalem had changed, not just in their vulnerability, but in what they now represented, a contested domain where history, strategy, and ambition collided in the roar of jet engines and the silence that followed.